Being a better ETF trader involves at least focusing very closely on the execution part of your allocation decision. So, first of all, you need to look at the ETF and understand what the underlying assets are. If they're very easy to trade, like a domestic equity basket, for example, it's very easy to look at the indicative value of the ETF, get an understanding of what the value of that fund is going to be at any given moment, and think about pricing your order in line with that valuation. As the asset class underlying the fund gets more and more difficult to trade, so international stocks or even international or emerging market bonds, for example, it makes valuation or understanding at any given moment during the day a little bit more difficult for you to understand. So at that point, it behooves you to think about working with liquidity providers on your execution size. In very small size, as long as you are no more than 25% of the average daily volume of the ETF, I think it's fine to use limit orders and work electronically. But really, if you get any bigger than that, you should be interacting with liquidity providers in developing an implementation process before you get to the point of execution. So you can develop a plan on what's the most efficient way to bring that ETF into your portfolio, and that will help your whole process. Average daily volume is not a valid metric to use for determining the liquidity of an ETF. It's actually totally off base because the underlying liquidity of an ETF all comes from the underlying basket and a variety of other factors, right? Are there derivatives that trade around this ETF that market makers or liquidity providers might use to provide liquidity? So what I would say is people have been using average daily volume for a long time to determine whether they should screen out an ETF from their usage portfolio, and I think that's a completely wrong metric. We've actually taken steps to try and change that thinking. I've created a metric called the implied liquidity, ETF implied liquidity, and that helps people to get an understanding of the liquidity of an ETF based upon its underlying basket, and I would say that's a better starting point for you to think about when thinking about which ETF might work.